it live? Hang on. Come on, Rockfin. Come on, knock on my door. I'll be waiting for you. Three's company too. Dun, 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 dun. Welcome all, welcome all. So good to see everybody here today. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. We are the hostess and host with the mostest. We are live here on Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch us every single Thursday at 6 p.m. right in front of your face. All right?
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Or like that one guy said, cha-cha-cha. Just to let you guys know, if you guys are new, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell just to let you know whenever we go live. Also, subscribe to our Substack for Revolutionary Blackout Network, just in case, because you know that YouTube algorithm does not like us and they don't like to let you guys know when we go live. So do that. Also, press the like button. I know you like us. You tell us all the time. Like really. You tell us that you like us. Sabby. Right?
Hit that like.
How's it going, homie? Good to see you.
Yay! I'm excited. I'm pumped for this discussion.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good discussion because we're talking about. Okay, so actually, let me get to the viewers first, if you don't mind. Is that cool? All right. As per usual, like to get to all the people who have joined us and make this channel possible. First off, we have Miss Angela Sangster says, time for tea with Sabby and Jaybe. Parasite was a powerful movie. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that. It was. Gamer is in the chat saying, hello. It's me. Sorry. You were going to sing it, weren't you?
I was gonna go there.
It's cool. Look, it's cool to go there because that's what they come here for. All right. Oh man, thank you so much. One of your favorite Thursday shows. Appreciate it. Nick is in the chat.
Uh-oh.
So good to see you in the chat. Hey, we're proud of what you were doing out there with Rome over the week, man. Seeing you doing your thing, for the tour for the poor.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of babies and toddlers are grateful for you because a lot of parents are grateful for you because you were doing the damn thing. Also, some of us hungry people, we were grateful for you too.
Yeah, I saw the food.
That was the first thing I saw. That was the first. Sabs, that was the first thing I saw. Janice Anderson is also in the chat. Two of my favorites in one show. Thank you so much, Miss Janice.
Oh,
Where Pilgrim here and accounted for. Absolutely, that is a win. All right. Game.film says, "Oh man, this stream is gonna be fire." You're right, Game.film. You're right. Al Terrell says JB has a good singing. Oh, really? The devil is a liar. I do not have a good singing voice.
You do, JB. You do.
Nah. Thank you, though. John Kemper. Brother John, time for fun? Absolutely time for fun. So good to see you also. Kenshi is saying hello to RBN. Hello. Raise your fist up for Kenshi. Good to see you all. Greg, my brother from another mother. So good to see you. Good to see your smiling face all over the place. All right. Eric T. Red in the chat. All right. Kenshi says, hey, Gamer. Oh, Gamer, you got some shout outs up in here. Yipper99 saying hello as well. Everybody's saying what's up to everybody else. It's all love up in here. It's so good. Margot. All right.
Margot.
Yep. In the 90s kind of world, I'm glad I got my girls. Okay. Sorry. All right. SCH says, Hola, camaradas. Hola to you too. All right. Who else we have? Infrared says, hello, hello. Hello, hello to you too. All right. Who else? Who else that we did not get to say hello to? I think that did it just skip for me? Nope, it did not. Thank goodness it didn't skip for me. But Joseph says, hi to you too. Sorry, I don't read Spanish. Fortunate, I gotta learn though. So Sula Moon says, "Hi, comrades. Hi, Sula." Justin is also in the chat saying, "Hey, fam. Good to see you, Justin." I've been doing this a lot for some reason.
Oh.
I know, right? All right. Look, listen. This is going to be an interesting subject. I'm glad that you brought this up to talk about Sabby because we talked about it in passing, a few times on this channel before. But there's something kind of like I feel like there's something underlying that kind of speaks to what's going on. Uh, hey, little, gotcha. But I feel like there's something underlying that's going on, not just within our country, but throughout the world, in regards to the subject matter of these movies and why they're so popular. What do you think?
Capitalism. So for those who are wondering, JB and I have watched a lot of the South Korean films. A lot of them are on Netflix. I first heard about them from my sister. My sister's really into, that kind of culture. She got me into K-pop, and she got me into South Korean like films.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I noticed is that they tend to make films that address the issue of capitalism quite often. And there's one of them that's not a film per se, All of Us Are Dead. That's actually a show. But even All of Us Are Dead still shows this theme of capitalism. And I can get to that like later on. But they show it in a way that I feel is not shown in American films. They show the grittiness of it, the rawness of it, and how
Yeah.
capitalism actually affects people's lives. It's a
Mm.
running theme with their films. I've noticed that even some of the zombie films have that same theme. There's
Mm.
one I know we're not going to talk about today, but there's one on Netflix. It's a show called Kingdom. That
Mm.
one, it's a zombie show, but that one also talks about capitalism because you see the difference between the people who are rich and how they
Mhm.
were able to pretty much wall themselves off from the epidemic.
Mhm.
Whereas the poor people, those out in the farms, in the fields, they were not
Mhm.
able to do that. They didn't have any protection because they were poor. So
Mhm.
you really have to see, like the ones we're going to talk about today, if you haven't seen them, you really should see them.
Yeah, I actually recommend to watch them. The reason being is because from what I've observed is that there's been uh it's like this critique of capitalism that kind of flies under the radar because these films and series are so lucrative that capitalists can't help but to allow it to greenlight it because it's making so much money for them. But at the same time, it's also damaging to them. And films like this, and of course they're films, of course, but at the same time, it's like these films are a blood-soaked sword in the freezing cold, and capitalism and the capitalists are that wolf. I'm not sure if you know about this parable, but it's like, okay, a hunter takes a sword or a knife and soaks it in sheep's blood, right? And then they freeze it, right? And as they freeze it, They stick it into the ground, right?
Wait, this
The wolf,
happens for real?
I don't know, but it's a parable.
Oh.
So the wolf comes over, and the wolf can smell the blood on the blade, and it's cold out. And so the wolf starts licking the blade because it tastes the blood on it. And so the blood can be likened to profits, right? So it keeps licking, but to the wolf's detriment, it starts cutting itself as it's licking. But it's also numbed to the fact of its popularity, right? I'm linking it to this, but it's numb, so it can't feel that it's hurting itself. But it keeps licking that blade to the point where it loses so much blood that it falls dead at, because of its greed and not stopping at trying to get the blood off the blade. Basically, it's just like with capitalists. They can smell the profit. They see and smell and taste the popularity of something like this. But much to the chagrin of, really, it's waking us up to, its faults. And it can lead, through popular opinion, to the death of capitalism. But they just can't help it because it's so lucrative. It's so good. It tastes so good that it's really killing capitalism at the same time. And so that's something I notice, is that movies like this, or shows like this kind of wake people up, but they can't help but to make it lucrative. They're saying, oh man, one of the most popular Netflix shows in Netflix history, Squid Game, is really a critique about the profit motive and how it's really devastated us. And so I think it's just like that. I don't know if that's a really good apt, parable or analogy, but that's pretty much what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I can share the graphic of Squid Game. We can start with
Hmm.
that one if you want.
Sure.
Um, that's a good segue into this. If you have not seen Squid Game on Netflix and you have a
Mhm.
Netflix subscription,
Mhm.
what are you waiting for? This is probably the best show that I've seen on Netflix long time. This is probably one of the top. So for those who are not aware, I'll tell you what it's about.
Mhm.
Squid Game is apparently they're like a set of childhood games, right? Like
Mhm.
actual childhood games that children play growing up.
Mhm.
And what they did is that they decided to make an adult version of Squid Games, of these childhood games,
Mhm.
life-size versions of them. So
Mhm.
the characters are bigger, obviously. The set, it's like you're actually on the board game. It's a set and everything. And you have these the participants, they all have numbers. They're people. So as you can see in this picture, you see this guy, he has a number, his number is 456. They all have numbers. And I forget, I think that was the last, wasn't that the highest number, 456, JB? There were 450 something people that
Ye-
participate in the game.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And what's supposed to happen is, I'll zoom in on this for you guys here. Not anybody can play this game.
Mhm.
In order to play this game, you're kind of pre-selected. And
Mhm.
what they do, the people who host the games, they target people that are struggling financially. Those are the people that they go and seek out and ask them, how would you like the chance to win all this money so you can pay off all your debts? So that's why they sign on to the game, not realizing what the game is actually about, like what actually happens if you lose. So there are
Mhm.
different levels. Every time you pass, you go on to the next level. The games don't even take place in South Korea. The games take place on some island in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knows about this place but the people who are running the facility. So I don't know how far you want to go into this, JB. We'll just say spoiler alert.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So what they don't realize is that if you lose, you die.
You die.
They don't know that when they sign on to it. They just want the money so they can pay off their debt. So all of these people that are participating, they owe money to someone somewhere. And the main character here, number 456, he owes loan sharks a lot of money. So he jumped at the chance to do it.
Mhm.
Then you have the people back here. I call them the soldiers. They're the ones in these pink suits. There's a triangle, square, and a circle. They're the ones that pretty much, they're kind of like security. They make sure that the game stay intact, that nobody cheats, no one, tries to cheat their way out of it. And the people that you see right here in the front, these guys, they're pretty much the ones that decide, hey, why don't we all try to work together as a team? That way we'll have a better chance of winning. But then you
Yeah.
find out later on, what, JB, that there's no
Uh,
way.
mhm.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. And yes, I just want to reiterate, right? Is that it is a little gory
Yes.
because people die, and in on the on the first episode. So you see that. In fact, so much so that even uh, there was a um, there was a article that said that Squid Game was rejected because it's a little too gory.
Hmm.
But at the same time, really, if you think about it, what's really gory about it is that it's just like capitalism, and capitalism itself is gory. Um,
Right. And for
yeah.
those who are wondering, like when JB said they find out during the first game that you die, they're offered an out. After
Hmm.
the first game, they're offered the opportunity to leave, to go back home and not be a part of this. Some of them decide to leave. But you know what happens? All the ones that leave decided to come right back, even
Hmm.
after what they just saw, even after they saw people being killed in front of them. Why would
Yeah.
they do that?
Hmm. Because the life outside of it is just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than having a chance of earning millions of dollars, of winning millions of dollars in a game. So it's like either you're damned if you do, if you're damned if you don't. So they feel like at least they have somewhat of a chance, a better chance in the games than they do in real life.
Yep.
That's that part.
Yep.
Uh,
And then at the end, I don't want to get too much into it, but at the end, you find out why, like who set up this game
mhm.
and why they're doing it. And of
Yeah.
course, the person who set up the game is someone who's rich.
Hmm. Yeah. And you find out that there's other rich people who are invested in the game too.
Yep.
Yeah. There was an article by BuzzFeed says Squid Game was rejected by several studios because it was deemed too grotesque, and now it is the biggest Netflix series. So yeah, that's the thing. Is just there's a lot of people who you know really it really speaks to like how desperate we are when in operating within the capitalist system, and how extreme the capitalist system is. And a lot of times we end up like, because a lot of people will say, you know well, you get freedom to choose, where you work and what you do and blah blah blah, and it's like, yeah, it's not that simple. It's really a forced coercion that we have within the system. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's like, okay, so yeah, if you don't do this, you starve and you get homeless, and then you essentially die, right?
Right.
And so what's the difference between real life and the capitalist system and Squid Game? Not very much. Well, your odds of are winning are actually kind of higher in a Squid Game than they are in real life under capitalism.
Right. And one thing to keep in mind again is that all of these people are in bad positions in their outside in their real life. Like they're in bad financial positions.
Mhm.
And another thing that I thought was interesting too is that when you look back on it, you know, the first thing someone can say is, well, why didn't they try to do something else to come up with the money that they needed? These are people who owe thousands and thousands of dollars. I think the main character owed like 5 million or something like that. Like they're just a part of a capitalist system that has
Mhm.
exploited them, and then they join this game which is also exploiting them as well, to the point
Mhm.
where it can cost them their life.
Yeah.
Even this group in the front that decides let's work together as a team sounds like a
Mhm.
great idea, but what you
Yeah.
find in the end is the way the games are set up,
Mhm.
there's actually no way that more than one person can win, and these games are not easy.
Yeah. I just want to address what Greg said. Greg said there's other stuff on TV that's just as gory. I don't think the reason they rejected it. And I agree. I agree with you because look, hell, look at Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is actually worse as far as gore is concerned. But the thing is that I do think that was a cover because it was such a huge critique on capitalism. That's honestly what I think. I think you'll agree too. I think that's honestly ultimately what it was about. But it's kind of like, I'm cautioning people who may be more sensitive because I'm kind of sensitive to stuff like that. But at the same time, yeah, it's more it had to do with capitalism. So I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. And it's so what do you think happens in this type of environment, you guys, where people are
Mhm.
competing for all this money? It's $45.6 billion dollars. And after the first game, they realize that if they lose, that they'll die. What do you think happens? The participants start to turn on each other. They start to attack each other and try to find ways to get the other person to lose
Mhm.
because they don't want to die. It's no longer just about, I want to win this money, and it becomes more so about, I want to survive.
Mhm. Yeah. And so um, the amount that they get is really a life changing amount, right? But even
Right.
still, you know, you're risking your life because and everybody has somebody they're fighting for. There's someone that's fighting for, you know, a sibling that is, uh, you know, that is orphaned. Another one is fighting for, for their kids. Another one's fighting for, an elderly parent. Another one's fighting for, you know, um, to pay off a company and loan sharks and things like that. So it's such a good, you know, framing of like what we all have to go through. Like, how many of us owe money to bill collectors? All right, we have constantly have bill collectors calling and harassing us. You know, and I like to think of a lot of these student loan companies. They're basically just loan sharks.
Yep.
I don't see them any different. You have ones like Sally Mae that are just loan sharks. And people, they can't declare bankruptcy because of the way the law is set up in here in the United States. So yeah.
Yeah. It gets pretty bad. Like they start like tricking each other.
Hmm.
Um, just to win because I mean, they don't really have rules. I mean, they have rules, but it's like, again, what you do behind the scenes or what you do before the game starts, there's
Hmm.
no one really enforcing what you do beforehand. And
Hmm.
there's one I want to show really quick here. JB, do you remember this one? This was the game, for example, um, Tug of War,
Oh yeah, I
but it,
remember
yeah, but I'll show you guys the picture, but it's not like your average tug of war game.
that.
Like
Yeah.
it's a life or death situation. So this is one here, the tug of war game.
Hmm.
And again, so you have two teams going against each other. So that's the other thing. Some of these games are individual, and then some of them are you're on a team. So obviously all the teams can't win. So if you were playing tug of war and you're on the team that loses, all of you die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Danny, we said spoiler warning. We said it earlier.
Yeah, see what Activism World said? Lots of South Koreans kill themselves because they cannot pay back debt, and debt shaming is very powerful in South Korea.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's horrible. Yeah. And so it just goes to show that, you have so many people. It's just like here, except for us, it's the shaming is, credit. The credit bureaus, reject you, for different things. Like, for instance, if you want to get an apartment, they have to run a credit check. And so if you have too much debt, then they're going to reject you, you know, because you don't have good enough credit.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And this one, I want to say something about this guy here, because not everybody here is poor. Mm-hmm. This is the thing to keep in mind. Not everybody here is from poverty or anything like that. The gentleman, let me zoom in here. They're just in tough situations. This gentleman right here, 218, mm-hmm. You find out later on that he's actually very, educated, had a top-notch job. I think he was a banker or something like that. But he's also in a lot of debt. And it's either he goes to prison or he pays back the debt that he owes. So it just goes to show you that, anyone can go into some type of debt, but they preyed upon people that they knew owed money and could not pay the money back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and, how many of us, are going through that right now?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I had a bill collector calling me earlier, the only saving grace is by law. They had to say, this call is on a recorded line. That's how I know that they're calling to collect the debt. And so they'll be like, this call is on a recorded line. Am I speaking to? And I go, click, so because it's like, how am I going to promise to pay a bill that I don't have money for? How am I going to try to set something up when I don't have? And they're like, well, can you just do anything? And like, and you know what? One thing, okay, I don't want to go on a tangent, but you know what? One thing that irritates the hell out of me is bill collector will call you on the phone and you'll be like, I'm sorry, I just don't have it. Well, do you have a family member that you can borrow the money from? I'm like, no, I don't have a family member to borrow money from. Why? Because my entire family is broke, has no money, no cheese, no simoleons, no bread, nothing, Nathan, nada, yet. So the thing is, they're like, they think that, oh, well, somebody in your family has, this much money. And I'm like, no. Nobody has that much money. Guess what? It is the 99% versus the 1%. How many of us actually have family members that are actually in the 1%? Very few of us. So that being said, nobody has any money in order to pay this stuff back. By the way, just as a side note, the companies that you actually owe money to, they actually have an insurance policy. So if in case you don't pay them back, the insurance, they actually get insurance based on that. So then they actually got their money back. But they sell their information to these other debt collectors. So then the debt collectors, they buy these debt on pennies on the dollar, and then they try to get the debt from you to pay them so they can make profit off of it, basically based on nothing. So by that token, you can just avoid them, and possibly in about 7 years, it's wiping your record anyway. But I'm not a person that gives that financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. The opinions reflected in RBN do not reflect the opinions of James Fauntleroy. Just to let you guys know that. I just want to sever our asses. I'm just saying it as a friend talking to a friend. That's all I'm saying.
Another thing I want to point out too is that when you look at the characters as well, what JB was just telling you about, can you get the money from a friend or a family? None of them can do that. None of them. 456 is just him and his mom doesn't have much money. 067 here, she doesn't really have family. I think it's just a sister, which
little brother.
Yeah, little brother. That's right. And then I forget about 199. 218, he's the one I told you he has a good job, good education, but his family doesn't. So he couldn't go to his family. That's the thing. They don't really have someone that they can ask to borrow money from.
Yeah. 199, Ali, he has a wife with a little kid. And he's an immigrant. And so he doesn't have, anybody that he can go to and depend on. So yeah, so yeah, you're right, definitely.
That's right. 199. This guy right here, he's not Korean. You just reminded me of that. That's right. That's right. So he was already going to be a target in this. But that's Squid Game.
Yeah, and 199. My heart actually broke for him the most.
Yeah, that one really hurt.
Oh, and the thing is that he was a kind soul, and you saw that from the first episode to the last. He was such a kind soul.
He was, and then it's like the people turn on each other, just like your everyday life. The people being exploited, they turn on each other in order to survive.
I'm gonna tell you something, and this is a really short story, but what a coworker of mine, a former coworker, when I was working as a salesperson in a furniture store, he said this to me. He said, "Unfortunately, in this country, the people who follow the rules don't make it. The people who try to do everything the right way, you can't be successful. You literally have to cheat your way in order to do it. This is a cheater's paradise." That's the way the United States operates. Basically meaning that the system, as well as our culture and society, rewards people for being, hostile or unkind. And so it saddens me, the fact that was considered a typical fact of life in our society.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, not everybody that's at the top, and I would argue what really is like success, right? But not everybody at the top got there the right way.
Yeah. But in this country, is there a right way though? I mean, the way it started,
Yeah, that's a good point. And some people, it was just handed down to them. It's just wealth that was generational wealth that was passed down. And so they think that the guy who started these games, the reason why he decided to do it is because he felt like, number one, he was bored. He was a rich, bored guy who wanted some type of entertainment, some type of excitement. And he wanted people to fight. He wanted people to really prove themselves, so to speak. Isn't that sick?
It is extremely sick. It's like, I got all this money. I could literally change the lives of many people. And I just want to see what happens, to their own detriment, but to my own benefit. It's sick. Yeah. And it really pisses you off towards the end.
Yeah, it does. All I'm going to say is there's going to be a season 2.
Yeah. I like this by Goth Cactus. I think the point of the characters is that they are humanized when they are just thrown out by a capitalist system. Yeah. Spot on. And I think that's one of the things. Oh, excuse me. I think that's one of the things that it also breaks your heart. Yeah, carry some tissues when watching the show too.
Yes, please. It's hard to stop watching it. I will say that. Like, we were like, okay, next episode. It's hard to stop watching it. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to Parasite?
Whew. That one's another one. The Academy Award winning movie Parasite.
That's right. And that's the image that I have right here, too. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and I think it really deserved it.
Mhm.
Another South Korean film. JB, you and my sister were the ones that kept telling me to watch this, and I had finally watched it, and I was like, "Oh my god, why? Damn,
Calm down. Oh man, this one. Because okay, so I'm gonna tell you this way. Excuse me. So I was watching. This is like one of the last times I ever watched the Oscars, and they were like, "Oh yeah, the Academy Award goes to," and they were like, "Parasite," and people were like, "A foreign film? A
yeah,
foreign film won Best Picture?" First of all, people were shocked. They were aghast. But then you also had a lot of people who were like, "Yeah," because they liked it, right? Then you had this one reaction commentator. He commentates on a bunch of games and he commentates on a bunch of movies, and he's kind of one of those dude bros. And he was complaining. He's like, "Why in the fuck would anybody choose Parasite? Blah blah blah." And he was basically like, going off on the whole wokeness of it. And I'm just like, and then he was like, "I haven't seen it, but why are people choosing?" I'm like, dude, you haven't seen it and you're complaining about it? Why not watch it first and find out why? Because look, for all intents and purposes, I watched, like, for instance, Moonlight, that movie. I watched it and I was like, "Oh yeah, I see why this won an Oscar." Right? And that was I think the year before. I was like, "Whoa, this movie is deep." And then, so now you have, you know, Parasite that won best film, and I'm like, okay, no wonder why, because it spoke to so many people.
hmm
Yeah.
So basically, to give everyone the rundown, this movie is about 2 families. One
Hmm.
family is poor, and by poor, I mean they're like in the slums poor.
Yeah.
The other family is hella rich,
Yeah.
and their paths cross because one of the family members from the poor family gets a job with the rich family.
Hmm.
I think it was the tutoring position, right?
Yeah. I think it
Yeah.
was the art tutor.
Yeah, the art tutor position. And it wasn't like the poor family didn't have jobs. Like they were working. I think one of them got fired. And then they also had problems with their house, like the house that they lived in. If it rains heavy, it floods.
Hmm.
Remember that scene? Like, so that was
Yeah.
another thing. Like they had to deal with that. They had to deal with people peeing right outside their window because they had like a lower level
Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah.
So they didn't have enough food. Like they were really poor. And that was the thing. They wanted to work. It wasn't like they were just like, this is our situation, whatever. But like they tried to get jobs. And
Hmm.
so one by one, each family member ends up working for the rich family, doing different things. But the rich family doesn't know that they're all related. And on
Hmm.
purpose, like that's on purpose. They don't want them to know
Hmm.
that they're all related. But the poor family members, they actually, I guess, framed the people who were in those positions before them so that they could get those jobs, so that they could work for the rich family and get the money and get to work in a nice house and stuff like that. So essentially, you had poor people trying to, fight against their own class so that they could get the job that they had.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the wealthy family was fighting against all of them. There's so much exploitation in this film. Even the lack of sympathy and empathy for the family members. Remember when the girl is shot?
Hmm.
It was, they were more worried about saving their material things instead of the fact that the cook's daughter was just shot. And they wanted the cook to come with them, to leave with them, and leave the girl there who just got shot by herself. They didn't see them as important
Yeah.
because they were poor.
Yeah. And, it's one of those movies where it just shows that the sense of urgency and care for people. Oh yeah, stab. Yeah, I remember. Um, it shows the sense of urgency for people, you know, is non-existent amongst the upper classes. And if it is considered unusual to other people in that same upper class.
Mm-hmm.
And, the people who are, in the lower classes, we actually are pitted against one another to screw each other over just so that we can survive.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's the thing with Parasite. That's exactly what they do. They're like, you know, they tried to go about doing things the right way, and it wasn't helping their financial situation. And then what you find out is that the original maid that the family had that had been with them for years,
Hmm.
she actually has her husband living in their bomb shelter in their house. And they don't
Hmm.
even know he's there. They had no idea that guy was living down there, but she was basically, taking care of her husband
Hmm.
in that bomb shelter. So this guy, I guess she would go down there and like feed him when the parents went to sleep and stuff like that, but it was terrible when you realize that he had been living down there all that time.
Hmm.
And then, they didn't want anyone else to take their place. But at the end of the day, all of them were poor. And instead of working together, they fight each other. Like they try to kill each other.
Yeah. Uh, that was tough, to see that, and there were points where they got to live the life of luxury when the family went away for a little while, the rich family, and they were all spending time in the living room and they were just, chilling, eating good food, drinking, the top shelf liquor, and it's just like people just don't really have, you know, people really just don't know, what it's like to even feel that semblance of just ease in life. They're so, wound up to the point where they don't know what it feels like. So even when they have this respite of, to feel good, it's always short lived. And so it was sad to see that happen, and then the family comes home early and yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like I will say, I'll share this image here too from Parasite that I think is important because this is the one when they kind of lost everything. I think with this part right here. Um, this image right here. So this is the father of the poor family, and he has a job as a driver for the rich family, and she's in the back seat. This is the wife of that family. The sky is so blue and no pollution thanks to all the rain yesterday. And what she doesn't realize, go away. What she doesn't realize is that while she was not affected by all the rain yesterday, this family was, because their apartment was flooded. And
Hmm.
so this was the thing. Like I said, they had like a lower level apartment. And you can see down here at the bottom, this is where when they got home from work, and remember they ran home that night, they
Hmm.
ran all that way and their house was full. They lost everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. It's so bad. And also just remember the rich family, their family's not only above ground level, but it's literally a second floor. Like you literally have to go upstairs to get to their living room. So their house is high above ground.
They're literally sitting up on top of a hill, like looking down on everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like they're just not they're not affected at all. And even when they find out later on, like what's going on and who they really are,
Mm-hmm.
I can understand them being upset because they feel like, hey, we got played or whatever. But at the same time, there was no empathy, no sympathy. And I think the hardest part is at the end when the son right here, after his dad gets caught and they're looking for his dad, you find out his dad is now hiding in that same bomb shelter that the original maid's husband was living in. So his dad is still living in the house of the rich people, but now he's underground. And his son writes him a letter and it says, "Don't worry, Dad. One day I'll make a lot of money and I'll get us out of this mess." And so it just shows you that they still feel the way that you solve the problem is to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. It's heartbreaking. Like there's no true, real happy ending because the only way a real happy ending can happen is if the change is systemic.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. They address class a lot. Like in a lot of the South Korean like films and stuff like that, like they address class a lot. And I've had two friends that have taught in South Korea. They went over there to teach because they pay you more
Mhm.
and they didn't have to pay for their apartments or anything over there either. And when they came back to the States, they were just, telling me about how different it is over there. That like, yeah, like it's harder in a sense that what you look like can matter whether or not you get a job. The
Mhm.
class system that you were born into can matter whether or not you get a certain type of job.
Mhm.
So you'll also see, for those of you who have ever been there, you'll also see like plastic surgery is really big in South Korea. Like
Mhm.
what you look like matters.
Mhm. Yeah. And you know, I mean, really, it's not that different here. It's just there's a lot of more people who have different varying levels of melanin in their skin. So, I mean, what you look like matters here too. And that's the
Mhm.
problem that I see here in this country too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um.
I was gonna say SG, but the K-pop kids are abused too. A few years back, one of them committed suicide. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard stories like how they work them, how they overwork the K-pop singers and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah. I heard that one of the famous groups, I think it was BTS, they had to sign a contract saying that they wouldn't have any relationships.
Yes.
And I'm
Nope. They
just
just
like,
want them to work.
what? It's
Hmm.
crazy. Like they can't have any relationships. Like that's wild to me.
It's
You know.
believed by record companies that when boy band singers get into relationships, it hurts the group. It hurts the popularity of the group.
Because they want young women especially to feel like they have a chance.
Yep.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Hmm. It's
Yeah.
it's a big thing. Like if you notice, if you look at like some of the K-pop groups and stuff, you can tell there's been plastic surgery. These are young people. You can tell
Yeah.
there's been plastic surgery, and they'll make their
Hmm.
skin look lighter than it actually is too. I've noticed that too,
Hmm.
with the makeup and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I know, like for instance, my nieces, they love K-pop, and they're absolutely enthralled with people, groups like BTS. But and while they're probably very talented, it's like, would they have had the success that they have if they didn't get, the plastic surgery or you know um having the changes that they did, like skin lightening and things like that, would they have had as much success in Korea?
Right.
Maybe not, you know. But we never know because they never tried it. Or, if they did, then it just wasn't successful because they live in a society where colorism is still a thing, and even in Asian countries.
All across the world. It's all
Yeah.
over the world.
Yeah.
It's an issue.
Hmm.
There's another one I can show. All of Us Are Dead.
Hmm.
And I don't know how many people have seen this one. I'll share the poster for this.
Hmm.
All of Us Are Dead. So this one may not at first appear like it deals with capitalism in a sense, but it does. And I'll give you a couple of examples. So this is a show. It's also on Netflix. Zombie show, yes. For those of you that don't like zombie stuff, I'm just gonna forewarn you, it is a zombie show. But it was another one I couldn't stop watching. Now, All of Us Are Dead. Long story short, there's a breakout, a zombie breakout. I don't want to give too much away. But the first person that is infected is actually a science teacher's son. And he tried to fix the problem himself, like conducting different experiments to see if he could get the virus to go away, but it never went away. So when he's trying experiments, he's practicing on like a mouse and then practicing on his son. He didn't tell anybody about this.
Oh.
The mouse that he was practicing on is in his lab, in his classroom at the school. One of the students gets a little nosy, goes into the lab, goes to play with the mouse, and the mouse bites that student. And I'm sure you know the rest from there. Now she turns into a zombie and then they go bite other people. And so there's like this zombie breakout at the high school and it extends into like the town. One of the things I noticed about this show in reference to the class issue in capitalism is that there is one student that is a part of the group of students that they try to stick together and fight off the zombies and stuff like that. He is intentionally infected by another student simply because of the fact that he is poor and lives in the projects. And she goes on to say she hates him because it is people like him who came in and they are ruining the community because they have that low income housing, like the housing projects now as a part of the city. So her disgust for the fact that he's poor makes her so angry to the point where she takes the blood of one of the zombies and she puts it into, I think he got a scratch or something like that. She goes to pretend like she's shaking his hand and she intentionally infects him.
Oh my God.
It's just so it's really brutal. It's really brutal. And so of course, the group doesn't want to be around her after that. But it's one of those things where a lot of this happened because of bullying too. So you might be wondering, like, the virus that the teacher's son caught or whatever, originally the father was trying to create some type of serum that would make his son stronger so he could fight off the bullies at the high school.
Oh, wow.
Didn't work out that way.
Oh.
So, but why was he trying to do that? Because when the father went to the headmasters of the school and explained, these boys are bullying my son, they just kind of like, well, he should be tougher. But I was telling my husband, I felt like that was a class issue because I think had it been like this girl's parents, because her parents are pretty well off, had it been her parents that came in there, the response would have been different. But because his dad was who he was, they had no respect for him whatsoever. So the school wouldn't help him against the bullies. And that's why he developed the serum to help his son. And the serum turned out to be, create a virus, basically, so to speak. But another thing about this show, which is really kind of sad, is that nobody cares about saving the children. By the time the police, the fire department, and all of them find out what's going on with this breakout here, they don't want to go get the kids from the school. In fact, that's the last place that they go. They go to all these different businesses to try to save the important people. In fact, who do they go save first? The politicians. One of them is planning on running for another term, or they want to run for another term. They go and save them first. Everybody else is left to fend for themselves. And multiple times they tell them, we need to go to the school. There's probably kids at the school that are okay, and they don't want to go. By the time they go, it's kind of too late. And then they think that one of the kids, one of them is infected. So they leave. They get back in the helicopter instead of taking the kids with them, because later on, this virus affects people differently. Some people don't show any symptoms. So when they realized that, they said, no, we can't take any of them with us. They get back in the helicopter and they leave, and the kids are left to fend for themselves. But again, they saved the politicians first.
Wow. So yeah, I never seen excuse me, I never seen this show because I'm not a zombie type, person. But just from hearing that, it's like, of course they would take the politicians first, because I guess the word public servant doesn't apply. It's more like public master. So you have to save the master first instead of, the public servants actually helping people to overcome this, and for them to go to ground zero first to try to neutralize the issue. But it's very indicative, and makes you, hearing about that makes me think of what happened in Uvalde, Texas. Right?
Yep. That's right. They saved their people first. And so even when I say that they saved them, I mean, they put them in a helicopter and took them to a secluded area that had no infections, a walled off area that was controlled by the military, gave them beds and everything. They had food for them, everything that they needed. But like I said, the kids were left to fend for themselves.
And it kind of goes to show that, because kids really can be kind of an allegory for anyone in a disenfranchised or more vulnerable position. So it could be elderly people, it could be disabled people, it could be people who are of a minority, and they get left out to the lurch. And so it's really, just, it happens so often that we really, honestly, we can actually, look at our watches and time, who's going to get saved first, who's going to, be safeguarded,
That's usually how it works. And I found the one for Kingdom. I can just show that one really quick too.
Oh, okay.
Kingdom's really good. Again, I think, all of these, I'm not sure about Parasite, but all the other three are on Netflix. Kingdom is another one. It's a show. I think both the first and the second season is on Netflix. Sorry, guys, but this is another zombie one. But this one has a big class issue as well. This gentleman here, he's the prince, and that's his buddy right there. So he's his right-hand man. He's supposed to protect and look out for the prince. And then you have the villagers. You have the people that live in the fields, the farmers and stuff like that. So long story short, there's a zombie outbreak. And again, this takes place back in the day, in Korea. But again, the people who are wealthy are the ones who are protected first. In fact, I think there's one point during this show, they tried to Yes, at one point during the show, they even tried to push the poor people to the zombies and let the
Mm,
zombies eat them.
mm,
Now the prince is decides to like fight, get out there and fight with the people. They don't really want him to do that. They want him to stay behind and be protected. But he's like, no, like this is my town. I need to go out there and fight. But
mm-hmm,
everybody else who lived up there where the prince was,
mm-hmm,
they don't go out there and fight. In fact, like I said, they're protected. They're pretty much walled off.
mm-hmm,
So they don't have to worry about it. Meanwhile, you have like the poor people, the people out in the fields and stuff like that. They're just getting slaughtered.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it all has really so much of a same narrative, and like we were saying earlier, it connects to so many people because we all are literally living. I mean, of course, it's more of these movies just take creative license outside of real life, but really, it's real life all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so then people will try to make excuses for trying trying to stick within the system, and then we talk against it, and people are like, no, this system is good, this system has this system saved a lot of people and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, it didn't.
And
that's
they're
like that's like Yeah, it's like saying, oh well, now that you're a zombie you can't die anymore.
yeah.
What?
But they're also, even in this show, they're also abusive towards the workers, to the farmers, the people in the fields, the people that are cleaning their houses and stuff like that. They're abusive towards them. And they even go as far as taking food away from the people who are poor that already don't have much to begin with anyway,
Hmm.
and working the long hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And yep, I agree. Life imitates art, and the thing is, when it resembles art very staunchly, that's to the point where it really gets people to like something because it's not fanciful. Um, and, okay, so I've said this before, but a lot of people will talk about how much they love Star Wars, right? But really it's just a group of revolutionaries that are trying to take down, a fascist government. That's
Yep.
really all it is. And so why is it so popular? Well, because you have people that are really trying to take down an oppressor. And yet when you express the same things in real world, then that's when you get the, oh, you guys shouldn't be doing it. We really live in the most greatest country in the world. And it's like, um tell that to somebody who lives in Yemen, or tell it to somebody who lives at Iraq. Like, tell them that, how do they feel? you know and so it's just like the whole, uh to us humans, a cat is not a monster, but to a mouse, a cat is a monster. You know, and so it's all about perspective. I shared a phrase on Twitter a little while back. Let me find it really quick because I saw it on my Facebook timeline that I quoted it over a year ago, and I was like, let me share this. Um, and it's an African proverb. It says, "Until the lion has a historian, the hunter will always be the hero." And so that's basically how it is, even within, like, for instance, these movies, you know, and people like this, that we see that are maybe even revolting against the system, are always deemed as unsavory, deplorables, or they'll label them as terrorists or something like that, even though they're trying to fight against, the system that is depressing them, that's repressing them. So it's just interesting, how a lot of times we will be so brainwashed to think that the oppressors are actually the saviors.
No, that's true. There's another one you guys could see. You guys are probably taking notes of this, but there's another one you can see called Hellbound. That's another Korean show on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And this one's more I guess about religion per se, that people need
Mm-hmm.
to do what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, these creatures are going to come and like beat the crap out of them, and then um, I'm sorry, that's exactly what happens. um Beat the crap out of them and then send them to like hell or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
uh it's actually a really good show,
Mm-hmm.
so I highly recommend that you guys watch this one, because this one kind of talks about, it shows you how easily people can be manipulated by a
Mm-hmm.
leader.
Okay.
I'll share the screen for a second. There's this guy who uh he's supposed to be like philosophical, and he's like, you have to join this organization that I've started, otherwise these creatures are going to come and beat you up and send you to
Mm.
hell. And then what you find, let me share this. What you find is that, number one, even if you do all of those things that you're supposed to do, they still could come after you. So this is hellbound. But this guy has made, not this guy, this guy is destroyed, but this guy, he's basically made a living off of creating this organization, convincing people that if you follow these principles of being kind and nice to each other, then you don't have to worry about these creatures coming to get you and stuff like that. But like I said, then you find out he's actually just one big fraud.
Mm.
But all these people buy into it. They even make a museum, JB. They make a museum. And you know what they do? There's one woman, they get a warning before they're going to come to you. So what they'll usually do is they'll see a vision that you're next, that your time has come, and they're going to tell you the day that they're going to come and get you and the time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm telling you, the show is crazy. And so you see it happen to several people, but there's one woman that it happens to, and she's a single mom. And you know what they do? They televise it. So she's sitting in a chair, again, single mom, working class. They sit her in a chair in front of an audience, and then those creatures appear, they beat the crap out of her,
Mm-hmm.
and then they send her to hell.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It was entertainment for them. You see what I mean?
Wow. Ooh, boy.
I'm telling you, man.
I'm sorry, but that sounds like a Democratic Party. I'm just saying, just from initially hearing about it, it sounds like the Democratic Party.
I guess Saul has seen it. Yeah, they televise it. Yeah, there's going to be a season 2 of this one as well. There's going to be another season, because the way it ends, you can kind of tell. But yeah, in Recover Before You Die, you see the ring. It's crazy. Like, and it can happen to anyone, right? So then what you find out is later on, it happens to a baby, a newborn baby. So how could a newborn baby have already been bad in life? And then that's when they start to realize that their leader is actually a fraud. It has nothing to do with what you do in your life. It has nothing to do with how you behave. It just comes for you just because.
Wow. Wow.
Hellbound.
Wow. Can I get to some super chats and tips on Rockfin as well?
Sure.
All right. So, Medaro Garcia says, it is a shame the only way people know of this economic realities is through these films. Are there no other alternatives? Well, you're looking at it. alternatives. Hello, hi. You're looking at it, so but yeah, I mean, I mean, this is the best way that, people can find out about, these alternatives, about talking about the economic realities that we face, you know. Right, Sabs?
That's right.
hmm I'm going to share my screen because we have some tips on Rockfin. Let me see. Thanks for the tip, Roger Meadows. It says, speaking of Netflix and zombies, check out Love, Death, and Robots, Season 3, Episode 4, Night of the Many Dead. The part where it cuts to the White House and hears his voice sound like a cowboy president as he responds to the zombie apocalypse. And then again, when that didn't work, and hear his voice as he responds, the very end where they show how insignificant we are in our galaxy. It'll have you crack. Oh, wait, it will have you cracking up. Okay, yeah. And then thanks for the next tip. He says, y'all may be too young to remember, but when I was a preteen, there weren't too many lotteries and get rich quick scams. But looking back now, I noticed as I got older, the lotteries got bigger while the scams multiplied. Observe the direct correlation between the widening of wealth and income inequality gap and lotteries and scams growth. If no more than 30% of your monthly income goes to rent or mortgage. And then for the last one, thank you for the tip. He says, you are less interested in participating in these scams. I cannot tell you how many more of these YouTube commercials are all about scams than selling actual product. Also, this Squid Games I hear so much about sounds like the producers saw a season of Puffy's making the band. Yo, that's true.
I forgot about that, JB.
Yo, that's true. Yo, um, hey Gene Zydak, so good to see you. But yo, like real talk. Hang on, hold up. And Roger Meadows, God, I love Roger Meadows. He touched on something because he's like making the band, and then there was another one about working for Diddy, right? You had to become his assistant, and so you had to basically just do anything and everything that he asked.
Mm-hmm.
And remember when Dave Chappelle made fun of it in a skit, and then
Mm-hmm.
and whenever he wanted to walk away, his bodyguards had to carry him up like he's a little kid and walk him away. Oh
He said, remember he said, walk to Brooklyn and get me a cheesecake?
yeah.
I said, you would have been okay. You guys are better than me because I wouldn't walk from Manhattan all the way to Brooklyn to go. You know how long that walk is?
Mm-mm. Hell no. Hell no. Say no, no, no. Uh, uh, and then we also have one by Dustin says, since we're on the topic, can we talk about how much anti-Soviet propaganda is in Stranger Things? It's disgusting.
But you know why that is, though, right? Because Stranger Things takes place during the 80s, and that was the propaganda back then.
Mm-hmm.
Remember
Yeah,
the Cold War and all that stuff?
that's true. In fact, it was even in, if anybody watches any of the Marvel movies, it was also in Black Widow.
Yep.
Because they had that anti-Soviet propaganda too, and so yeah, it's crazy, you know. I anything that's socialist or communist at all, it's hell. It was even in WandaVision. I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember. You remember when Vision he said one of the guys that he said he went to the neighborhood watch thing with, he goes, this person's a communist. And it was supposed to be like a laugh track. And I'm just like, really? So Like, let somebody like us write it, then we would have said this person's a fascist, you know? You know. Wait. I gotta address this sarcastic freedom. Love Marvel, but DC is better. I don't know. I don't know.
No.
Look, I'm gonna have to disagree with you on this one. Look,
No.
Savvy.
Look, okay, let's talk about this really quick.
Okay.
DC, okay, I'll give them this. DC has better TV shows. Arrow,
Yep.
The Flash, Supergirl, they got that. The movies suck. Like Batman versus Superman, awful. Awful. If I wanted to see 2 hours of a dream sequence, I would just go to sleep and dream myself. That was awful. Justice League was awful. How do you introduce the Justice League and you didn't introduce the solo characters? See, Marvel did it the right way. You had Iron Man, you had Thor, you had like the Hulk movies, you learned about the individual characters, and then you had the Avengers. DC goes, let's just come out with Justice League and let people try to figure out who these people are. No, you have to introduce the individual characters. But the movies, the DC movies are bad, except for Wonder Woman. The Wonder Woman one, the first one was good. But other than that, DC should stick to TV.
Yeah, I agree. I think DC is better TV, but I don't really watch DC TV shows anymore. I just don't. And the last good DC movie that I've ever watched was The Dark Knight Rises. That was the last good one.
Yeah. No, I think
Uh,
you're right.
Now I have not seen the Batman, the newest one that came out, so I can't say for sure that that one's good or not. A lot of people said it was pretty good, but to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
the Christopher Nolan ones, those were top notch. Like I'm like, because here's my thing, I don't hate DC. I just wish they put up a better uh formula like Marvel did so that it's competing. I want to be at the point where I look at Marvel and DC and I'm like, yo, I don't know which one is better. It's like it'll be a hard choice for me. I want it to be a hard choice for me, but unfortunately, it's not. You know, and I see. Don't get me wrong. I think Marvel is slipping right now too. Let's be real. I think they're slipping right now too, but um, because ultimately it's about movies aren't taking risks anymore. And I'm gonna divert this back to capitalism. Movies don't take risks anymore because that risk means the potentially losing profit. Think about this. Harry Potter, it was a risk. Star Wars was a risk. Oh my goodness. What else? What are the franchises? Lord of the Rings was a risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so many films and movies were risks. Like Fast and Furious was a risk. Who wanted to see a movie about racing cars, you know, and family? Nobody wanted to see that all the time, you know. So, but these movies are risks. But because they are risks, there's a huge payoff. But what capitalism does is goes, well, we don't really want to risk that much. So we're going to go with something tried and true. We're going to take it, we're going to remix it, and then put it back out there to people and say, okay, here's a part two. Case in point, Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, was basically Star Wars Episode 4, but just remixed. That's all it was. And this is why people had a problem with it, because they were like, we already seen this before. Why are you guys re-showing Episode 4 just with better graphics? And so I think that's one of the issues. So I didn't want to get too far away from, you know,
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I would say, okay, I did see the new Batman. I forgot about that one. Sorry. That one was pretty good, but I will say I don't think Robert Pattinson did a good job as Bruce Wayne. As Batman, he did, but like I'm not used to emo Bruce Wayne. So that was a little a little bit off for me. But apparently back in the old comic books, Bruce Wayne actually did have that type of personality. And then another version, he was the Playboy Bruce Wayne, which most of us are more familiar with. But overall, I think that DC is better at shows. I think they really kill it with, well, Arrow's done, but like they did amazing job with Arrow. Amazing job with like Flash, Supergirl. Like they're good with those. But I don't know why they can't transfer that into the movies. Like the only big seller for them in reference to their superheroes is Batman, the Batman movies. The other DC characters don't do well in the movies. Remember the Green Lantern? That bombed.
It bombed so bad that Ryan Reynolds had to kill himself for picking up the screenplay in Deadpool 2. So yeah, it was hilarious. He shot himself in the back of the head, like, no, we're not doing this again.
This is terrible. It's terrible. I'm sorry. It just, they tried.
Yeah,
and then I think they came out with the second Wonder Woman movie too soon.
Yeah.
They didn't develop the other characters. They should have introduced, what's his name, Cyborg, the guy with they should have did a movie for him. They should have did one for the Flash. Like they didn't do that. They like, okay, time to come out with the second Wonder Woman movie. It didn't flow well. And I think people should stop casting Ben Affleck as superheroes.
Yeah. Because every single time he got cast as a superhero, it bombed. I mean, look at Daredevil. Bombed.
Dude, he was so monotone in Daredevil. He was so monotone. He was just like, oh, I guess I did not know that. I'm like, dude, is this for real? Like he was not good in Daredevil, but it's just not his thing. I don't think superhero is his thing.
No, it's not. Like he shouldn't do that. I mean, one thing I think that's the problem is Warner Brothers. They're just trying to copy the money gains when really, like, for instance, the first Iron Man was a risk.
Yep.
Right? It was a risk because Jon Favreau decided, I want to do an Iron Man movie. And so who do they got? They got a former Hollywood darling turned reject in the name of Robert Downey Jr., right? And then they gave him a chance. And then they did the screenplay with him, and they were like, oh, this guy is so good that we just have to have him. And so then they got him, and then they advertised, they did a good advertising campaign, and they did that. And a lot of us, for years, have been saying, man, we would love to see Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. Next thing you know, at the end of the movie, after the credits, I am Iron Man. And then he comes out of the shadows. We're like, what?
Yeah.
That's where it started. And then when we saw the Hulk movie, next thing you know, the door opens. Spoiler word, by the way, everybody. And then, so next thing you know, you see this shadowy figure as General Thunderbolt Ross is taking a shot and going, reload. And then next thing you know, who comes in? It's Tony Stark from the Iron Man movie. So then they set up, boom, boom, boom. And then by the time you get to the Avengers,
it made sense.
It made sense. They didn't have to establish anybody's story because it was already established in the movies prior. In fact, they didn't really even have to establish the origins of Bruce Banner in the Hulk movie because they already did that with Eric Bana, in the movie even prior to that. So they were like, we're not going to relive that. We're going to continue this on and then add it to the cinematic universe. And so that's what they did.
That's right. They did it the right way.
Yes. DC rushed it. That's their problem. You cannot rush a cake. You got to add the ingredients. You got to make sure they're measured just right. Then bake it for the allotted time. And then once the cake is ready, it comes out moist. It comes out flavorful. And it's good. All you got to do is make it cool down and ice it up. But Warner Brothers was like, no, we want the money too fast. We're like, gimme. And that's the way they were.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And those movies, that's why those movies did so terribly at the box office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'm just at a point right now where I'm like, yeah, I want to see. I haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder. I want to see it, but I heard it was pretty good.
It was pretty good, but it's not better than Ragnarok, in my opinion.
I got you.
I
Ragnarok
like
was
the
funny.
music though.
Nice, nice. Uh hang on. Septien says actually, JB, they had a formula for their movies. They lost the secret sauce. Was the was the secret sauce Christopher Nolan? Because yeah, I agree.
Mm.
You know, I mean, and then plus the movies are literally too dark. Like visually, they're just too dark. Like you literally have to turn up the rate, the contrast ratio in order to see the movie.
Well, when you see the new Batman, it's even worse because that one is very, very dark. Granted, I saw it in the movie theater, but it's very dark. It's hard. It was hard at times to see what was going on.
Mm-hmm. If Hollywood promises less sci-fi and eliminating CGI, think twice about watching them. They should have did what Christopher Nolan did. Christopher Nolan does a lot of practical effects. If you watch movies like one of my favorite movies is Inception. That movie was phenomenal. Lots of practical effects, especially that one where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is fighting this guy in the hallway, and it looks like they're running on the walls and stuff. That was all practical effects. It was not CGI. So,
Gotta go.
oh well, we got to close out anyway. So this was all for today on the Sabby and JB show. Thank you so much. Sabby, what do you have coming up on your show in about 30 minutes?
Oh yeah. So tonight I'm talking about Pramila Jayapal just got a serious threat. So I'm going to talk
Oh,
about that. Joe Biden blaming activists. We're going to give an update on what happened with Jackson Hinkle's situation. And then also LeBron James walking his words back as usual, Mr. Flipper Flopper. But
LeBron. Okay,
that's what I
I'm
got
interested.
tonight.
I'm interested in hearing that. Hey, and in about half an hour, everybody here, all 135 of y'all, move over to Savvy's channel and then make sure to watch that at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in 30 minutes. All right. I know where y'all live. I'm gonna hold y'all to it. I'm not gonna bring y'all cookies if y'all don't go and see Savvy. Well, go ahead, visit my homegirl. All right.
Bye.
And also, love every single one of you. Forehead kisses to all of you. Leave the world better than you found it. And smoke them if you got them. Mwah! All right, everybody. Leave a like.